So welcome to the week one of our new coastal crochet blanket by Eleonora Tully. We're going to now work through today this lovely square that she's designed, and as with most of these, you start from the centre and we'll be working outwards. So we're going to start with what's a relatively simple middle. It will get a little bit more complicated as it goes out, but hopefully this video will make it that you can do all of this even if you're fairly new to crochet. So I'm just going to move this out of the way and we can get started. So I'm starting here with yarn A, which is the Buttercup yarn in the Cotton Soft, and it's lovely to work with this particular yarn. So first one is to get a slip stitch or a slip knot onto your crochet hook. I do this by pinching the yarn, the tail comes towards me here, wrap it round 2 fingers and then pinch it between, and I pop my hook through, grab it, bring it through, and when you pull both sides you end up with a nice little slip knot. So I'll just show you that once more for people who've not seen me do this previously. So lay the yarn out, cross your hand, pinch it, wind it round, I pop it between my 2 fingers and then grab it, bring it through. Okay. So set your hand up however you're comfortable. I tend to have it over my first finger, under the second, over my ring finger, and under my little finger, and that just gives me enough tension on the yarn to help me work. Right, we're beginning with chain of 4. So 1, I go under from the front, 2, 3, 4, and then slip stitch to join. So there we go, you've got this little circle here that we're now going to work into. And for this first one we're going to do a chain of 3. On some patterns that counts as a stitch. For this particular one on this particular row it doesn't. So we're then going to work 12 trebles into the ring. So that's wrap into the hole, grab it, bring it back through, wrap and through 2, wrap and through 2. So this is a UK treble. So if you're watching these instructions and you're from the USA, that will be slightly different, but this is the stitch we need you to do. So wrap, in, grab, back through, wrap and through 2, wrap through 2. So we're going to work 12 of these in total. So you don't have to watch me do all of them. Do be careful when we get round to this sort of section that you pull here and end up there with a nice little gap to still work into. What you don't want to end up doing is working over the chain of 3 that you created at the beginning, and that's quite easy to do, particularly if you're a novice crocheter. So 2, 4, 6, 8. I need to do another 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's just double check this. Counting is always a good thing to get into the habit of doing when you're working crochet. So that one doesn't count, that's the chain of 3. So I've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and this needs to be slip stitched quite a long way in so that you don't end up with 13 stitches by accident. So if I slip stitch it there, we're just going to double check this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's perfect. It's quite easy to end up with an extra stitch and then things start to go wrong quite quickly. So again, round 2, we're keeping it facing in the same direction. We haven't turned the work or anything, but we have done the slip stitch. We're going to do a chain of 3 again. Oops. And then again, that one doesn't count as a stitch, and then we have to do 2 trebles at the base of the chain 3. 1, 2, there. And then we're going to do 2 trebles into every stitch to the end, and you should end up with 24 stitches, 24 trebles plus that extra chain of 3. So let's do a couple more for you to just watch through, and then we'll rejoin in at the end. So as you can see there, everything, ignore the first one, they're all being done in pairs. So we'll just work our way around. Right, so let's just check we've got enough pairs here before we start joining any in, that we don't need to work any extra. So that's my spare stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So yeah, I've got my 24 stitches because I've got 12 pairs, and again, you ignore this first one and slip stitch you round just past it, and that means you don't end up with any naughty little holes appearing here. So round 3 is also done in the same colour. So again, we've not turned the work, we're still on the front. There's a definite back and there's a definite front. So round 3, again, we're going to chain 3. This time that's going to count as the first treble. It does tell you this in the instructions, so I'm just pointing that out because it's slightly different to what we've done before. And then right in the base of there, you work another treble. So you've got your chain 3 and your 1 treble, and they become a pair this time. Then we're going to work 1 treble into the next stitch. So you've got a pair and a single. And then what we're going to do is keep working a pair into one stitch and a single into the next stitch all the way around. So for this one, I've got to work trebles again. So 2 trebles into your first one, and then a solitary treble into the next, and then again 2 into there and 1 into the next, and we're going to continue that pattern all the way around, and that gives you enough stitches that your circle should lie flat, because you don't want it to curl up and you don't want it sort of wobbly either. So let's crack on and get to the end of the round. So here we are at the end of the round. So we've started with a pair, which was your chain of 3 and the first treble, and then a single, and we've done that all the way round. So we've done a 2 and a 1 and a 2 and a 1 all the way round, and then again we're going to slip stitch in there and get that nice and tight. Now with this, at this point, we're being told to fasten off. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm just going to chop my yarn, and we should have 36 stitches going round, and we just need to sew these ends in. I prefer not to leave all my ends till sewing in at the very last minute, partly because I find it one of the least fun bits, so to be stuck with dozens and dozens of ends after you've done all the lovely crochet is not my idea of fun. So here we go. I've just gone round the back, so this is the front, gone round the back. And then when I'm doing this sewing off, I actually like to go under that one there and then back in, and that's just one of the ways I like to do it. So but everybody's got their own techniques, so do what works for you on this one. And then oops, it's sort of trying to spread this out a bit. You don't want to end up with any of the sections too bulky. So I think that will do for now. So that's your first little circle. And then we come to round 4, where we need to join in colour B, and colour B is the azure colour, so that's the one I'm working with next. And so you can join this into any stitch, so I'm just going to randomly pick a stitch, then do a chain of 3. Now, as you've probably, or may know if you've watched me before, I like to do 1 chain with the tail and then 2 chains with the working yarn, because it just gives you that little bit of extra control over that first stitch. They can get a bit stretched and funny, and it's a great way of tightening that up. So we've got a chain of 3, which counts as your first treble here, and then we're going to do 1 treble into the same stitch. Then a single treble, this is again UK treble, into the next 2 stitches. Okay, and then 2 trebles into the next stitch. So you should be starting to see the pattern flowing again here, or the stitch combination. So that's 2 into 1 and then 2 individuals. There we go. Now we're going to do this again all the way round, so that's 2 trebles there, and then 1 each into the next 2. So I'll just power through these, and then we'll join it again at the end of the round. So here we are at the end of the round, doing 2 individual trebles there at the end, and then we slip stitch to join the ring. So that's round 4, and at this point you should have 48 stitches going round. So again, we're not turning the work, we're keeping it this way up, and for round 5 we start with another chain of 3 and then 1 treble in the base of that stitch. And then we're going to do 3 individual trebles, 1 into each of the next 3 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, and so you can start to see how the pattern's going to build up. So we're going to have 2 stitches, then into the next stitch, and 1 treble into each of the next 3 stitches all the way round with these. So once you've got that little stitch combination in your head, it's really nice to do. Just make sure you don't lose concentration too much as you're doing this, because otherwise you'll suddenly find you're on the wrong set. So it's a set of 2 and then 3 individuals all the way round. So here we are at the other end and of round 5, and then we are going to slip stitch as before to the top of the chain 3. So that's that one, and round 6 is very repetitive again. So again, quick demo of the beginning. So 3 chain, 1 treble there in the base of the chain 3, and then it's 1 treble into each of the next 4 stitches. So 1, oops, 2, tail's getting in the way there, 3, 4, and then we'll have another pair of trebles. So these rows are nice and easy for getting you sort of into what you're doing before it gets a little bit more complicated and a little bit more challenging. 1, 2, 3, 4. So nice and easy repetitive numbers to remember. 2 trebles together, then 4 individuals, 2 trebles together, 4 individuals, and we're just going to again carry on round this ring, and we'll pick it up again at the end of the round, and then we start to get a little bit more technical. So we'll be joining in another colour at the end of this round. So here we are back at the beginning. So we've gone all the way around and we've finished with a double there and then 4 individuals, and we're going to slip stitch to the top of the chain 3, and this time we're going to fasten off because we're now going to change back to the lovely yellow colour. Pull that out, sew some ends in, and then the next stage gets a little bit more complicated. Right, so here we are with the lovely round that we've created, and we're going back onto yarn A, which is the lovely yellow. And for this one, this is where the round gets a little bit more technical. So here goes. You join into any of the stitches of the row below. And we're going to do 1 chain. Now in this one that isn't going to count as a stitch because we're also going to do a double crochet. That's a UK double crochet. They're always a little bit fiddly on these first stitches, I find, but don't worry, it will neaten up, and you won't end up with a funny lump when you've finished. We'll get that all tightened in and it'll look very neat. So that's 1 double crochet there, and then we're going to do a double crochet into each of the next 6 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The next stitch, this is the one that most people are going to find a little bit fiddly. It's a front post quadruple treble. So try saying that fast. Front post quadruple treble, and we're going to be working it into the last of the 3 yellow rows that we did. So I'm going to do this very slowly. So a quadruple treble has 4 wraps. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we've got the original loop and we've got 4 wraps. You then work your way down here and you are going under from right to left under that stitch, and you can see how everything's looking a bit weird at the minute, but don't worry. So that's where we're starting. I'll do you another one in a minute. And then you wrap, pull through 2, wrap again, pull through another 2, wrap again, pull through another 2, wrap again, pull through another 2, and wrap again and pull through another 2. And you can see how you've made a lovely long, almost twirly stitch there. They're actually quite pretty. So let's just work through that again, so that you then, this stitch here counts as that stitch there, so you miss that stitch and go into the next one to work 7 double crochet. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, I'm going to work another, bit of a disaster, I've got a little knot in my yarn. Not what you need when you're in the middle of a complicated stitch. Okay, so wrap 4 times, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, then we're counting 3 stitches along, so 1, 2, 3, and we're going to work behind this 4th stitch. Okay, and then you've got your original you've got 4 wraps and you've got your loop from where you've just anchored down there. So this is the tricky bit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you can see how it's starting to build up. So again, miss that one and double crochet into the next 7, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we repeat what we've just done. 1, 2, 3, 4 loops, and then 1, 2, 3 clear stitches and underneath the 4th. Okay, fold that bit back, it's just that bit easier. Bring it through, and then we're going to do the wrap and through 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Don't be frightened of getting hold of that as opposed to the fabric. You just need as much control as you possibly can, because it's quite loose as you're working this, so it's a little bit tricky. Miss the stitch and do the next 7 as double crochet. So I'm going to gently work my way around this loop, and then we'll come back in at the end. By all means, you know, pause, rewind, do whatever you need to do to get yourselves past this point. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Because it's not easy. Work it slowly, work it neatly, because you'll be much happier with it at the end. So we're on the final one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the final quadruple treble. 1, 2, 3. We're on that middle stitch there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then that's it, we're back at the beginning, and you're just going to slip stitch to the first one of the previous row. Just want to make sure I'm as far back as I can be on that one. And then again, cut off your yarn, pull that out, and then I'm just going to sew the ends in, and then we'll take a look at the next row, which again is slightly technical but probably not as complicated as that one. So we'll be back with you in a moment with the next row. Right, so here we are back with round 8. Round 8 isn't particularly complicated, but it does have quite a bit of information that you need to understand in order to do it properly. So initially you are starting, you've got to go into the centre of a set of 7. It doesn't matter which set, but you go into the centre one and you rejoin your yarn. And for this particular one, we're going to do a chain of 3 again, which counts as the first treble. So there, I've got my chain of 3 in. Then we're going to do 1 treble into each of the next 3 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3. Now with this, you're not going to work into that stitch, you're going to miss that stitch there and actually work your treble into the row below, and this really does neaten up the stitches at this point and tightens things up a bit. So you've got one slightly longer looking stitch in between, so you can see that. So I've not worked into the yellow stitch, I've gone into the turquoisey stitch at the row below. It does neaten it off and it really does work on that one. Now you then are working 2 trebles, into this next stitch, but just in case you are tempted to fast forward the video from this point, don't just yet. You need to sort of listen to the next bit that you're doing. So you've done 2 there. Now you're going to do 1 treble into each of the next 5 stitches and then 2 trebles into the next stitch. And that all sounds really simple, and that bit technically is. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we're going to work 2 trebles into this stitch. And you're going to be working the combination of 5 individual trebles and then 2 trebles into the next stitch all the way around. What you've got to remember is that every time you hit one of these long stitches, you have to go into the row below. So it doesn't matter at what point in your set of 5 trebles you're at, you've got to go down into the row below. And that's the bit that makes this row a little bit tricky and makes you have to stop and think. So I've gone down into that one, and I now have to work another 4 trebles after that. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've actually got 5 individual trebles because you have to include this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 2 trebles into your next stitch. And then 5. 1, 2. And in this case, this is where my long stitch is going to come in, under there. 3, 4, 5. There are moments when things can look a little bit messy and uneven, but it's amazing how when you work your next row, everything just seems to straighten itself off and look perfect. So I've then got 2 trebles, another set of 5 individuals, 1, 2, 3, and this time my 4th stitch in the set of 5 is going into the row below. 4, 5. Okay, so you can see I've got the pair there, 1, 2, 3, the long stitch, 4, and that's 5, and then 2. And so if you've not watched the video, I think there's sort of a chance to go wrong there, but it's a little bit chicken and egg as to which bit of information to give you first on that row. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then your 2 trebles together are actually going into the underneath stitch this time, so you can see how that stitch moves, and it has to do this in order to get the circle to lay flat when you've finished. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to keep working round doing 5 individuals and then a double, or sort of 2 together, 2 trebles together, all the way round. So when you've got all the way around, slip stitch those in there, and you've got a lovely, pretty round shape there, near perfect as I think you will get with crochet. So I'm going to cut that off, and then we're going to come back in round 9. So now we're ready to do round 9. Round 9 is using yarn C, which is the lovely sage colour that we've got, and it's a nice easy row. You join into any of the trebles. I'm not going to join into a pair, I'm going to join slightly to one side, because you can end up, if you end up doing the 2 stitches into one, which I'll show you in a minute, then all at the same points each time, you tend to start making sides, lots of sides, a bit like, you know, octagons and hexagons and things, rather than circles, and we really want to keep a circle. So on this one, you join into any of the spaces and you do a chain of 3. So I'm going to do 1 with the tail, which is what I like to do, and then the other 2 with the working yarn. Okay, so now we've done that chain. That is going to count as a treble when we get further on, and I need to do 1 treble then into the same stitch. So that becomes one of my pairs. I'm then going to do individual trebles into each of the next 6 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then we're going to do 2 trebles into the next stitch. So this is your increase, and this helps your circle lay flat. And then we're going to do 1 treble into each of the next 6 stitches. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then I'm going to do another 2 stitches into 1, so 2 trebles. So you can see now how the pattern's going to build up. You're going to do 2 stitches into 1, then 6 individuals, 2 stitches into 1, 6 individuals, and I'm going to work that all the way around to the end. So we'll come back in a second when we're back at the beginning again and joining the next colour, and I'll show you what to do next. Okay. Okay, so this is round 9 all finished. So we've got the combination of where you've got 2 trebles in the same hole and then 6 individual ones between, and that goes all the way around. So round 10 is worked in almost exactly the same way. This time we're using yarn D, which I can't remember the colour now, opal. And you again find just any of the trebles. So again, I'm going to avoid the doubles that are already there and go somewhere in the middle. If you stop and start in exactly the same place all the time, you kind of end up with a fault that is visible. It's not really a fault, but that's how it seems to appear. So this is why we're recommending that you fasten off on a lot of these rows. Nearly every row you're fastening off with now, rather than joining the colour as you go along, because it just makes for a neater overall finish. So here we go. We've got 1 chain with the tail again, and then 2 chains with the working yarn. So this time we're doing the same thing again, where we've got a treble into that same hole so that you've got a pair to start with. Oops, that one out of the way. And then you are now working 7 individual trebles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 2 trebles into the next space, so you've got your pair, and then another 7 individual trebles. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then another pair. So I'm going to let you carry on going all the way round on this one. Once you've done this again, join it at the next one. Round 11 is exactly the same, except you're using the yarn E, which is the cream yarn, and this time you're going to work 8 individual trebles between each pair. So I won't show you that bit, I don't think you need to see it again, but we'll rejoin you in a moment at the end of round 11, and then we'll be ready to work one of the more intricate rounds after that. Okay, see you soon.